What's up, everybody? I'm TJ.
And I'm Kelsey, and we are
the Nashville Wine Duo. All right, it's my turn to introduce the wonderful guest on this week's podcast. Longtime friends.
Yes.
Done life things together.
Life things.
And it's about freaking time we have them on the podcast.
It's about freaking time we see them again.
Why do we wait till season 2 to have them on the podcast?
I don't know.
I think it's your fault.
That's my fault.
Welcome.
All our fault.
It's all our faults. Yes, we're all to blame in this fiasco called life. Our wonderful friends, Anderson from the Grow Bar and Heidi, LaTequilaMamaCita.
Hi.
LaTequilaMamaCita.
Yes. These two are, I would definitely say, experts in spirits and primarily tequila. So we're so thrilled to have you guys on here and just, have to talk about this fun tequila. And we are going to talk about some wine too.
They brought like 16 bottles of
tequila. No, they did not bring 16 bottles. They brought 6.
We're super excited to be here with you guys.
Yeah.
This is going to be fun. We know just enough about tequila to get us in trouble.
And if you could see the table right now, wine and tequila spread all over.
And you both are from SoCal, right?
She's from Northern California.
I'm from
Southern
Napa.
California.
Okay.
I'm from Orange County.
Right. Why don't you guys just give a brief history of two of you, how you met, came together, and then where you are now and how this interest in tequila kind of came about.
So we met on social media, Facebook, I think like 2014. And it was we both were in a multi-level marketing company, which is called Canaway, and it was CBD vapes. And she was like, she was doing it here in Tennessee, and I was in SoCal. We both had jobs and stuff. It was just like part-time, and she was on some group, and I had seen a couple posts of hers.
He was stalking me.
We just started talking. And she's like, "I'm married," and I'm like, "Yeah, me too." Yeah.
We were kind of on the tail end of our marriage.
Yeah.
Right.
So, you want to finish?
We were just friends, and I used to just get these random messages from him on Messenger, and I would always answer them, and just time passed, and we started talking more and more, and then fast forward to August of 2016, we got married.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was actually 2014 when we met.
We got married in Napa on a vineyard, her sister's property, 5 acres on a vineyard. And it was awesome.
Sounds like the perfect day.
Beautiful backdrop, awesome small service. It was really cool.
So then what happened is, he moved to Tennessee. We got married, and I just kind of decided I needed a change. I'd been doing hair for 30 years and was looking for something to do. And I saw a position for a brand rep for a Nashville-owned tequila company. And I thought, that's really interesting, like a Nashville-owned tequila company. And so I went to work for them, and that sort of motivated me to learn more about tequila, because I just felt when you're representing a brand and you're selling something, you should know what you're talking about. So I kind of, right the night before the interview, I just went online and YouTube and learned everything I could about tequila, just so I was prepared when I went in for the interview. And then once I got the job, I just kind of learned more and more along the way. And Anderson really loved like bourbon and whiskey. He was a tequila drinker years ago, but when I met him and he got to Tennessee, he got really into like the bourbons. So he started collecting bourbons, and then I started collecting tequilas. And we decided we weren't really using our dining room a lot, so we converted it into a bar, and that's the Grow Bar, because there's plants growing all over it too. So
originally it was going to be like a grow, like you're growing plants. A lot of people were like, "Oh, what else are you growing?" And I'm like, I really got to change this up. I really got to change this up. So I came up with this new one of like growing in knowledge of spirits and cigars and good things of life. We're always growing. So it's the Grow Bar.
Or at least we should be always growing, right?
Well, we're always growing in our knowledge.
Yeah.
If we're exploring new, wines or new spirits or new cigars or new coffees that come out, like we're growing in our knowledge.
Yeah.
We're adding to our portfolio of what we've tried.
Definitely.
And our palate. We're exercising our palate.
Very cool.
So it's the grow bar. That's kind of, I changed it. I shifted it so that it was less plants. So I don't really like emphasize the plants, but we do have plants in the bar.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Tons
Grow
of
Bar
plants.
is beautiful. If you ever go to their page, Grow Bar on Instagram, like it's beautiful.
Yeah, we've been to this bar, and I remember just being like, this is so cool that y'all like made this in your house, and like you have this like, it feels like you're like going to a legit, like, I don't know, like an underground cool bar or something.
Like the little speakeasy in Spring
Yeah,
Hill, Tennessee.
exactly. And there's a lot of plants and like just so many bottles of different spirits. And I was
Hundreds?
just,
Would you say there's hundreds of bottles in there now?
Oh yeah. I
Yeah.
mean, if you saw it now compared to how it was when you were there,
Yeah.
there's a lot more. Yeah.
How many bottles do you say you have? Have you counted?
Of tequila,
Done inventory?
Like, there's got to be at least, I don't know, a couple hundred.
200 or 300.
Yeah.
Have you thought about insurance on it?
I don't know if you could do that.
You know what? We're just like, it's fine.
Yeah.
We're not going to worry about that part of it. Like if somebody what do you mean insurance? Like fire? Or...
Oh, well, I mean, like that's a lot of money
I
in
know,
tequila.
but
Because I know you guys have good bottles in
if
there,
something
right?
happens,
Like-
then we start over. It's like, you know, that's just life. I mean, we're going to try to protect it.
Yeah,
of course. We go on vacation, we have somebody stay in our house.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, you know, but
It's really cool. And now we're getting into mezcal too.
Mhm.
So today, before we came over here, we were just rearranging the bar because you have the bar, and then on one side is shelves with tequila on it. On the other side was shelves with bourbons and whiskeys.
Mm.
And then we had to get a whole other unit to put more tequila in. Well, we ended up moving all the whiskeys and bourbons off those shelves behind the bar, and now it's all tequila, like everywhere now. And the bourbons are kind of, you can't see them as much.
I gave in.
Yeah, you did give in.
But
Yeah,
now,
I
like
gave
when
in.
I do my Instagram live show, it doesn't matter if I'm sitting in front of the bar or behind the
It's
bar.
all
There's
tequila.
tequila behind me.
It's a cool
Yeah.
setting, yeah. It's good
Yeah.
for her show.
Yeah, yeah.
Her show's so awesome.
Yeah.
Like it's her second year.
yes.
What do you like? Episode
We're like
80?
on our, no, I think this week's going to be our 73rd episode.
Yeah.
So tell us about the show.
So the
73rd?
show, 73rd
Oh,
episode.
that's really
It's every
crazy.
You need to
week.
keep up, brother. What have you been doing?
That's the year of my birthday.
He's been drinking all the tequila she's got.
Yeah.
I'm a numbers guy.
Yeah.
It's like a weird year. So I turned 50 this year, and my birthday is 123.
Whoa.
And I turned 50 on 123. The last day of this year is 123 123.
That's okay. That's
1, 2,
freaking
3, 2,
weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so she's on episode 73. That's the year of my birthday.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
So-
I'm a numbers guy. Whenever I hear numbers that like match things that are happening, I just kind of.
Yeah.
One time at Trader Joe's, my very first transaction
One time at
for the
Bang
day
Cap.
was 2373. 12373. That's my birthday.
It's
Wow, that's
it's the
cool.
opening to the hatch.
Yes.
It's weird. I don't know. I trip out on numbers. It's weird. I don't know. And then I like in my head, I'm like, oh, that's cool. It's my lucky day or whatever. I don't know. Whatever.
Well, it's cool that this episode is happening with these numbers.
Yeah. Well, so this show. So when I got on Instagram, a lot of things started happening over COVID because nobody was working. And so I was doing reviews. I was like just doing whatever I could to keep busy and like make money because I couldn't do hair.
Uh-huh.
So I started making these little cocktail mixers, organic cocktail mixers, and I would put them in mason jars and make them look cute and deliver them to people like on their doorstep. They didn't have alcohol, but there were little instructions on there that said, add this much alcohol, to make one drink, or this much to make like 4 drinks. So I started meeting a lot of people on Instagram in the world of tequila. And a girl reached out to me and she said, I want to do a live, but I've never done one before. And I said, well, I haven't either. And she goes, well, will you do one with me? And I'll ask this other girl too. So we did this live and we ended up having like a master distiller and like different people jump on the live with us. And we decided to make it a regular thing. So
cool.
There were 3 of us. Now there's 2, but it's every week. It's called the Techie Ladies. So the tequila and then DIES, the Techie Ladies. And we interview master distillers, brand owners, educators, bartenders, just like anybody in the agave spirits industry. It's mostly tequila, but we have had like some mezcal people, and we're going to have like a sotol, which is another spirit that's popular, agave spirit.
Sotol?
Sotol. Uh-huh.
Sotol.
It's a type of agave spirit.
It's made from a different agave, yeah.
Oh,
So
never
tequila
heard of
can
it.
only be made from Blue Weber agave. And it can only be made in Mexico in 5 states: Jalisco, Guanajuato, Michoacan, Nayarit, and Tamaulipas. Those are like the 5 municipalities in Mexico where it could be made. Mezcal can be made, and that's the one that people are like, what's the one with the worm? That's mezcal. And that was all a gimmick thing. The worm
That's
really
tourist
has
mezcal.
nothing to do with it. Yeah. So, but mezcal can be made from, I don't know how many different kinds of agave, like over 30 different species of agave that it can be made from. And it can be made in 11 different municipalities. I don't know what all the names are. I know Michoacan is one of them, because it's one of the places you can make tequila and mezcal. But so that's the difference, is mezcal came first, and it was made from all these different kinds of agave from different areas in Mexico. Tequila is really a type of mezcal because it can only be made from one agave, which is Blue Weber. Yeah.
So mezcal came first.
Yeah, mezcal was
Or
first.
mezcal.
Tequila is a mezcal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a
tequila
type of a
is
mezcal.
So mezcal is the OG.
Right.
Mezcal's the OG, and originally, when it was first made before the Spaniards came along, it was pulque, which is undistilled mezcal. It was just fermented. So it didn't become distilled until the Spaniards came, and they had already been making wine, and they ran out of their wine, and they thought,
Cognac.
what would happen if we distill this pulque? And that's how tequila happened.
Wow. Isn't that nuts?
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
That's how
crazy.
mezcal happened, and then
That's how mezcal
eventually,
happened.
yeah, tequila.
And somewhere in there, they discovered that the Blue Weber agave would produce the most yield, was the most flavorful to people's palates. It's more general. So they said tequila can only be made with this type of agave.
Yes.
And that's
Wow.
tequila. And it can only be grown in the 5 regions, the 5 states.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So we asked you guys, because we're big wine people, of course, obviously, but they're doing some really cool things with tequila, age-wise.
Yes.
So talk about that world and what's going on in this tequila.
So, so tequila has there's 4 different expressions in tequila. There's blanco, which is tequila that is usually not rested in a barrel. It can be for up to 2 months, but not more than 60 days. It has to be under 60 days, so 59 days. And then you have reposado, which is aged in a barrel anywhere from 2 months to just under a year. Añejo, which is aged 1 to 3 years. And then anything over 3 years is extra añejo. And then you also have joven, which we'll talk about tonight. Joven is when they take a blanco, which is usually not rested, and they blend it with one of the aged expressions. And that's called a joven. It's a blend. So, yeah, so those are the 4 types. So what they're doing is pretty much most of the tequilas, when they're aged, the reposados, the añejos, and the extra añejos, are aged in bourbon, like ex-bourbon barrels. And the most common one is Jack Daniel's. Nowadays, they're aging in cognac barrels. They're aging in rum barrels. They're aging in wine barrels. So these 3 that I have here, the reason why they have a pink color and kind of rose gold is because these 2 here are aged in wine barrels. So they're actually rested in barrels for under 2 months. This one is a little bit different, the Ana Maria. This one is actually a joven. It's infused. It's blanco tequila that's infused with wine from Valle de Guadalupe. It's a wine region in Mexico.
Wow. That's
Yeah.
so
they
cool.
Pour a little bit of wine in it.
So that's why it's a joven, because it's a blend. And I didn't really know that they could do that, because as far as the rules and regulations of tequila, it's governed by an organization called the CRT in Mexico. The definition is a blanco that is blended with an aged expression, like an añejo, an extra añejo, or an ultra añejo. I didn't know they could do it with wine, but clearly this is registered with the CRT. Every tequila on the label, if it says tequila on the bottle, has to have the CRT, and it has to have the NOM, N-O-M, which is like the identification number of the distillery where it's bottled. So, Yeah,
It's a
and this
nomenclature
is
number.
it's definitely registered. So
The color on that is so beautiful. I mean, it looks like
Yeah.
rosé
It is
wine.
beautiful.
Like,
yeah. So this is a really interesting one. So I was going to start with this one, but we'll just talk about. So Ana Maria, it's named after Ana Maria. When she was a little girl, her grandfather was a master distiller of tequila too. And so she would often at dinner time when the parents were drinking wine, she would go fill those bottles with tequila from the barrels
wow.
and put them back on the table. And
Sounds like my kind of
Yeah.
woman.
Yeah. So that's how that came to be. Now this one is Código, and this is actually a blanco tequila that is rested in a wine barrel for, I believe, 1 month.
Cabernet.
And I think they're Cabernet, French oak Cabernet barrels. That's why it has that tint
Mm-hmm.
to it. This one's also cold pressed afterwards. So they do that to remove any cloudiness or like little particles after it's distilled. They like drop the temperature down to between 26 and 32 degrees and cold filter it for that reason.
Wow.
Yeah. I'm not really sure exactly why they did that because I mean it's only rested in a barrel a month. So
Yeah.
I'm not sure. And then Juan de Leon, this one's only aged 6 months in a barrel, and I believe they're Cabernet barrels.
That's a really cool bottle.
also. Yeah.
So 6 months versus the previous one that was 1 month.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Oh, wait,
6
no,
months,
not
no.
6 months. Sorry. Oops. Yeah. So this one is
That would be a
1
reposado.
month, and I think this one is like 2 months.
Okay.
Like a little bit longer.
Just under
Okay.
2 months.
Yeah. Yeah. Just
Gotcha.
under 2
Has to be
months.
under 60 days.
Wow.
Yeah. So those are those. And then I also brought Benta tequila because one of the founders of it, there's 4 guys that founded it, is Steve Reynolds of Reynolds Family Winery in Napa. He's also the executive producer of this documentary, Spirit of Agave, that is, you can order it like on Prime Video, but it kind of covers like the history of tequila, yeah, and everything. But those are rested in American oak, French oak, and Hungarian oak, a combination of new and seasoned barrels. So I just thought it was interesting because he's a winemaker, and I'm pretty sure, don't mark my words, but I think some of those barrels were used previously for wine. So that's why I brought those.
That añejo is delicious.
Yeah, yeah. And the interesting thing about Benta is that they use, so typically when a brand is making tequila, they're using agave from one region, like Jalisco. Let's just say Jalisco, and it's either the highlands or the lowlands. Benta is using tequila, agave from all 5 municipalities and blending them.
That's very cool.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool that they did that. So, yeah.
It's kind of like a scotch.
Thank you so much for bringing all these. And
You're
are we
welcome.
gonna? I think we should dive into
I think we definitely
some of them. I don't
should.
know how many I'll be able to try.
We could just do a little.
Yeah, just nibbles.
like tiny bits. Yes.
Yeah.
How do you say a little in Spanish?
Poquito.
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 Yes.
Nibbles.
So we're going to start with the código.
This is the worst part of our job is trying all these wines and alcohols and stuff like that.
Pour
I
a
don't know
tiny bit.
how we do it, but it's just comes along with the territory.
That's a lot.
What do you recommend, like food pairings with tequila?
It depends on the tequila.
Okay.
I wanna-
So it's kind of like wine. It can like be different depending on which
Mhm.
one.
Yeah. Like I love pairing reposado with like seafood. It
Okay.
just tastes so good, or
Yeah.
sushi. Because reposado, since they're not aged quite as long, they tend to, you still get a lot of the agave and you get like a little bit of pepper
Yeah.
and oakiness, but not overly oaky. It just goes really good.
Would you say though that like kind of how like Italian wine goes with Italian food, it's like tequila goes really well with like Hispanic food and
obviously.
culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely for sure. But like the other night, we had some blanco tequila made by Legado. And for some reason, we both taste like spice and jalapeno. And we were eating pizza or pasta or something Italian, and it tasted great.
Really good.
With the
Okay,
Legado.
that's
Yeah, it
cool.
was really, really good. So I watched TJ. He was swirling his tequila and his little
Smelling.
tequila and smelling it, which is what you want to do. You want to
This is
smell
so
it?
smooth. I've already
Yeah.
tried it.
Yeah, I know. I saw
Good thing
you.
I'm not on
So-
video.
I
This
saw
thing
you.
is so
So
smooth.
this is the código.
It's delicious.
Unbelievable.
So código was George Strait is involved with this brand, and Ron Snyder, who was like
Oh,
the
wow.
former CEO of Crocs, and
The former CEO of Crocs.
yes, and Federico
That is so good.
Vaughn. Yeah, they founded this. They were just acquired by Picard. So Picard now has like a majority of the ownership in the brand. So everybody is hoping that nothing changes with the brand because Código has their own distillery.
Mm.
So
Very
a
cool.
lot of distilleries will make more than one tequila, but they have their own distillery.
This is unbelievable.
Yeah.
It's very good.
What does a bottle of this usually run at your
I
What
think
was
liquor
that like?
store?
Cool Springs has had that.
What is
I've
it
seen
like?
it there. Like
60?
60, $70.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
unbelievable.
Worth it.
So
Totally.
when
Yeah.
you think about tequila, like a lot of people always say, "Oh my God, why is it so expensive?" So with wine, wine can be very expensive. You could spend a lot on a bottle of wine, and it's an annual crop. Tequila, the agaves, before they're ready to harvest, they're not fully matured till at least 6 years. It's usually 7 and sometimes
Wow.
more. Like it could be 10 or 11 years before they're ready to harvest. So, and it's all harvested by hand. There
Right.
isn't like a big machine that goes and plows this giant, it looks like a giant pineapple. It's called a piña. And this guy, they're called jimadores, they go in and they dig these things out, and then they have spiky leaves on them, and they have to like chop them all off with the koa. I mean, just go to YouTube and like search how agave is harvested for tequila, and you watch a video and go, whoa. And so one agave, they can be anywhere from 80 pounds to 200 pounds. On average, they're like 100, 125. We'll make about 11 bottles
What?
of tequila. One huge agave will make 11 bottles.
Oh
That's
my
it.
God.
Yeah.
That's
And then
crazy.
they have to reseed, like replant, and wait 6 or 7 more years before they harvest it again.
Dang.
And literally most of it is done by hand. There's a lot of labor that
Yeah.
goes into it. So to me, it's like, I'm surprised that the good tequila isn't more expensive
Hmm.
than it is. Yeah.
So it's definitely the long game for sure.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I had no idea.
I had no
Yep.
idea either.
There's lots of labor. that
And
go
of
into
course,
tequila.
these are sipping tequilas. I'm not talking
Should be
about
way
like
more
Yeah,
the
making a
inexpensive
drink
ones
with
that you're
it.
going to make a drink. But like
No.
something like this, you sip. Although it can make a good cocktail too.
What's your thoughts on tequila shots?
I think that tequila is meant for sipping, and guns are meant for shooting.
It's so funny though. Actually, every time I go to the
That's good, I like
every
that.
time I go to the airport, I get a drink at the airport. That's just
Mhm.
me. It's starting my trip.
Mhm.
And I swear, very often I'm at the bar and they come up for tequila shots. Tequila seems like it's the most trendiest spirit, I think, right now.
It's
I
the
know that
fastest growing.
I know that bourbon and whiskey have been making a comeback because I watched the whole thing. It was a show too, kind of like what you're talking about. And they described how in the 80s, like really clear liquor became very popular with these bars, like the neon lights and the different kind of martinis and drinks you'd make. So whiskey and bourbon kind of went away for a while. But
Mhm.
now I feel like young people, tequila is like the go-to. Like my little sister, that's all she will drink is tequila.
Mhm.
And I'm interested as to why that trend. And I did see you make a video one time I think it was one of the Kardashians that pronounced something wrong and how they said one of the tequilas. That was one of my favorite videos you did. It made me laugh really hard. But you think that's why? Has there been celebrities that have talked about tequila? What, in your opinion, why do you think it's made such a comeback? Both of you, I'd like to get your opinion.
What do you think, babe? You want to give your
I think people are just starting to realize what's real. And like for me, switching from bourbon to tequila, there's so many different tasting notes in tequila. It's so much more complex than bourbon. Bourbons to me, like they're good. I'm not going to bash bourbons, but like they just got boring to me. And there's so much tequila in the agave spirit world is just way vast compared to bourbon. You got all these different agave spirits, Sotol, Bacanora, Racia, Mezcal, lots of different agaves. It's a more intricate craft.
Mm.
Mm.
Like bourbon's about corn, grain, spelt, wheat, all that, right? Grown 1 year, harvested, make bourbon, whiskey. Agaves, these things grow in the ground for 6 to 8 years.
Right.
You got different terroir, you got different weather, you have different sun patterns. Each year is different to that crop.
Yeah.
Totally just forms that agave. You know, so it's just it's like way more complex to me. That's why I not switched over, but just gravitated towards the interest in tequila because of that.
And yeah, every spirit, I mean, is an art form. You
Yeah,
know,
I'm not putting down
bourbon,
bourbon.
gin, rum, like it's all an art form. But to me, the fascinating thing about tequila and agave spirits is that it's not something that you can just harvest every year. You know, there's so much that goes into it, and sometimes things happen and it's just devastating. Like a few years ago, it snowed like a lot in Jalisco, and I think that affected a lot of the crops. So, you know, things like that could happen, and then it's like you don't have to just start over and wait a year. You have to wait years, you know, to replant. As far as like why tequila is more popular with the younger crowds, I do think that celebrities have a lot to do with it. Like Código, George Strait, you know, is involved. There's Insolito, which Midland, the band,
familiar with them.
they're involved with that. Thomas Rhett has Dos Primos. I mean, I can go on and on. Sammy Hagar and Guy Fieri with Santo Tequila. So that does create awareness. All the brands that I just mentioned, celebrity tequilas, are great ones because they don't have any additives and they're making tequila traditionally the way it's supposed to be made. But there are some that I really don't support, like Casamigos and 818. And there's several other ones. I can't remember what Eva Longoria is. I love Eva Longoria. Like, I love all these celebrities, but as far as like coming out and having a tequila and leading people to believe that this is how tequila should taste, it's not true. They're not being transparent. So in the world of tequila, the CRT, which is the organization that governs all the rules and regulations, they allow, just like in wine, I think they allow over 60 kinds of additives in the United States that can be used in wine. Yeah. Well, in Mexico, they allow 4 additives that can be used in tequila: glycerin, oak flavoring, caramel coloring, and sugar syrups. So the glycerin is used to make the spirit feel smoother and like not really have a lot of bite. The sugar syrup, that speaks for itself. It's going to make it sweeter. You're going to get like lots of vanilla and cake batter, and it's going to be like overwhelming when you smell it. The caramel coloring is used like in the aged expressions to make it just look darker, so you think, oh, it aged for a long time. Yeah. And then the oak flavoring also in the aged expressions. So by law, they can only use a total of 1% of additives in a bottle of tequila. So that doesn't seem like a lot, but it's very, very concentrated. I'm talking like you could take a toothpick of something and put it in the bottle and it would taste that way.
The whole bottle. Yeah.
In a whole bottle, like the tip of a toothpick, would make it.
Would the reason for that be to make it cheaper or more marketable to the obviously American palate, because we love sweets?
But
we like
both.
Yeah.
Both. And also originally the reason was for consistency. And people were using a fraction of 1%.
Yeah.
Now they're using at least 1%. I believe that that's being abused. I believe that more than 1% is being used. And I'm not sure like how closely that's all being monitored. We have had someone from the CRT on our show who said, they go in and check it. And, but it's Mexico, and, the CRT is funded by the government. So you never know. It's a very, very questionable. So I try to support. I don't care who made the tequila. I don't care if a celebrity owns the brand. I don't care if my next door neighbor owns the brand. If it's made traditionally without skipping any steps, I'm going to support that brand. If it tastes like cake batter or vanilla, then I'm not going to support that brand. So what happens is, how I said the agaves are fully matured at 6 or 7 years. Well, these big brands, and it's not just celebrities, it's just big brands in general, but most of the celebrity brands, they will work with farmers who agree to harvest the agaves younger, like 3 and 4 years old.
Like before they're ready.
Before they're ready. So just think
Definitely.
of like if you were making, wine and you picked the grapes before they were ready, it would taste horrible. So that's what happens. So they're harvesting the agaves young. They're not
right.
so with most mass-produced tequilas, owned by a celebrity or not, they harvest the agaves too young at 3 to 4 years instead of 6 or 7 years, and they also cut corners on the production method. So instead of cooking it in a stone brick oven or even an autoclave, which kind of speeds up the process a little bit, they are diffusing the tequila. So what that means is it's going through this huge machine that shoots it with like really hot water and disintegrates it. And then they put all that mush in an autoclave and cook it. Then they ferment it and distill it, and it tastes crappy. And so they have to add additives to like make it a little smoother and sweeter, and sometimes make it look darker and have more oak flavoring if it's, supposed to be a reposado or an añejo. And that to me is just like, it's very deceiving, because young people that are drinking Casamigos and 818 and just a lot of other brands, they think that's how tequila should taste, that it should be smooth and sweet. And you're right, Kelsey. It's, as Americans, we like everything smooth and sweet. And so everything is about the dollar, and everybody's just trying to make money, and they're appealing to the masses. Yeah.
Yeah. And we see this happen a lot in the wine world too. I mean, one wine I can think of in particular would be like Miomi. Like that, this was a company that, I mean, years back, everybody was like, this wine's amazing. And then it just shifted. And like, when you look into research at some of these places, they get bought out, or then they want to come up with, they want the wine to taste the same every single year. So they're putting more sugar, they're putting more additives into it, because they're like, they want a consistent product for people that are going to come to the store and buy it. And it's always, this Chard and this Cab, they're always going to taste the same. Apothic will always taste the same every time you buy it. And it's like, wine's not supposed to be like that. So the terroir where the grapes grow. So every year, California is getting a freaking snowstorm right now. That's going to affect the way that the wine tastes. And if it doesn't change it, then there's something wrong. And like, it's the same with our food. And John, you had said cigars when we were when we weren't talking on here, but it's a good thing for things to look different and taste different every year, because the ground, the weather, all these things play a part.
But to hook a consumer, consistency does that.
Consistency.
Totally.
Because you expect something.
Yeah.
So the masses, that appeals to them. And there's always going to be like the aficionados or the purists. I call them tequila purists. We're looking for the additive-free tequilas. We're not out for the bang, for the party, for the good flavor. We're looking for like raw stuff. And what's crazy about mezcal people,
and that's not even good flavor.
And mezcal people are really like, there's this mezcal movement that's like, I had a couple people on my show, and they're searching out spirits that are from like really rare agaves. Like they want the raunchiest, like dirty agaves. And this like flavor that's just crazy. You get like grass and lemon and agave and just all these like different, like, it's appealing to their palate. They're picking up all these different flavors that like no other spirit offers. And so they're just like getting into it. It's super cool. Intricate and artsy, and you get really deep into this stuff. Like there's different ways to make tequila and agave spirits, like the real super old ways where they're crushing it with wood mallets, and like you get into that whole story of it, and it just kind of like you want to learn more, and it just engulfs your life. Like you just like, now I want to search more tequila agave spirits. Like Heidi went up to Napa, and they're growing all these different varietals up there, and it's just amazing what California is doing.
Interesting.
With this spirit, and when Mexico runs out of agave because of all this like celebrity tequila craze, which is growing, all these people, the most masses, they follow the media, they follow their celebrities, and they're sucked into this. And, those tequilas are good to them. That's a different side of this whole thing. And then there's the purists.
Yeah. There's something for everybody.
Yeah.
Might be a dumb question, but like wine, do tequilas, because I know you said they're aged, you
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
do they have vintages on them? Like, can you tell when you go to pick out a tequila or a
Some do.
mezcal?
Los Abuelos or Fortaleza does that.
Yeah, some do.
Um,
Okay.
Mhm.
Tequila Ocho does that. They release an extra añejo and they have a date on it. That's a year that they produced it.
Does Cascanes?
What would be
Sometimes.
the reason that they don't
They
put a vintage
well,
on
they
it?
have all of them have a vintage,
Okay.
but sometimes they don't put it on the label.
Hmm.
Whereas like Ocho's like, extra añejo 2017.
They're advertising it.
Mhm.
or
Yeah, they're like
whatever.
this came
Okay.
out in 2017, and all the aging,
Is there a way to
information.
tell what vintage it is if they
Yeah,
don't kind of?
Tequila Matchmaker.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, let's talk about Tequila Matchmaker. So, Tequila Matchmaker is a really cool app started by a married couple, Grover and Scarlett. They moved to Mexico. That's how passionate they are about this. And they are tequila purists and really wanted to develop an app for people that love tequila to know like where it's made, not just where it's made, like what region it's made from, but the distillery. And you can also see like what other tequilas are made at that distillery. And it will have all the production methods on there too. Like how was it cooked? Was it cooked in a stone brick oven? Was it cooked in a high pressure autoclave or a low pressure autoclave? How was it crushed? Was it crushed with a tahona? Was it roller mill? How was it fermented? How was
Wood
it
pallet.
distilled? If it was aged, what kind of barrels was it aged in? Like it has, and it's a free app. It's called Tequila Matchmaker. And Grover and Scarlett, have created their own verified additive free program. So, just to give you an idea, out of like over 2,800 registered tequila brands with the CRT, there's only like 70 that are verified additive free through Tequila Matchmaker. Now, just because on the app it isn't verified additive free doesn't mean it isn't. And this is why they have to go in. It's a very invasive process to
Mhm.
get somebody verified additive free. So they go in, not only do they like test the different batches of the tequila, different lotes, but they also go in and look at financials. They want to make sure that the distillery isn't purchasing any kind of additives. So, and it takes a really, really long time, like months, to get verified additive free. But that is one way to know that you're having a tequila without additives, is using that app. The first page you're going to see is their list of additive free tequilas, which is really, really cool.
That's really cool.
Yeah. When I was in California, Anderson was saying, I went to a distillery, and it was in American Canyon, like really close to Napa, where my family is. And I met with Gian. He's the master distiller. He's a winemaker. He makes whiskey, but he's from Mexico. And so he decided he wanted to make a California agave spirit. And he met somebody whose father had planted these agave. The species is agave americana, and they had been growing for 25 years. This particular species takes a long time to mature.
25 years?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he made an agave spirit called Jano, because his grandma used to call him
That
Jano.
bottle's got to be like $200 or something more.
I have it. It was like $170.
Okay.
You're right.
Yeah,
That's right.
and I had to go to San Francisco to get it. You can't get it in Tennessee. I think you can actually contact Gian at Jano Spirits, and he'll figure out a way to get it to you online. But it's so good.
Oh my
And I
God.
forget how many bottles were made, not very many, but he was very gracious. And I took my two sisters and my brother-in-law, and he let us tour just the distillery where they made it.
That is so
And we
cool.
got to sample it, and it's really, really good. A couple of days later, I went up to Stargazer Spirits, which is in Sonoma County in Glen Ellen. And this property is amazing. It's 125 acres, and it's like sits between it's in the Mayacamas Mountains, between the Napa Valley and Sonoma County wine regions. It's gorgeous up there. So this couple bought this property. They were city slickers. Like I forget what they both do for a living, but they lived in Hong Kong for 10 years, had their kids, moved here back to the States, and decided they wanted to buy land, even though they knew nothing about farming, and they didn't really know what they were going to do. And the husband was on a flight home from Tokyo reading one of those in-flight magazines, and there was an article on the mezcal boom in Mexico, and he was looking at the landscape of Oaxaca. That's one of the regions where they make tequila. And he was like, wow, this looks just like our property we bought. I wonder if I could grow that there. So 4 years ago, they planted, they have over 30 species of agave growing on their property. And I got to like tour it. We hiked down the mountain to the valley floor and back up. And it was just really, really cool. So he's like a few years away still from being able to harvest and, make something out of it. But it was just really, really cool to see. And California, if there's a lot of agave spirits being made in California. I think there's agave being grown in like Santa Barbara, a lot of Southern California because the climate's right.
Mm-hmm.
But in order for your bottle, like these, say tequila on them, it can only say tequila if it's made in Mexico. So in the States, you have to call it an agave spirit. But in California, they already have a California Agave Council in place. And the first rule that they made was no additives, period. So if your bottle says California agave spirit, it can't have any additives in it.
Okay.
So this is like a new thing.
Yes,
kind
it's
of
new.
Wow.
These are like the trailblazers of it all.
This is just going to grow.
Yeah.
It's going to keep growing and growing. And other regions, other places in the United States will probably end up growing.
So it can't say tequila if it's in the United States.
It's
Almost like
agave
champagne.
Exactly.
Like is champagne France. It can't say champagne.
Or bourbon. It can't say.
It has a denomination of origin.
That's really interesting and cool.
Wow. I didn't know any of this. It's so cool.
So it would be labeled agave spirit.
It would be labeled. So if it's labeled agave spirit, I don't know if there's additives in it or not. All I know is like if it says California agave spirit, it can't.
Right.
I've tasted enough agave spirits that I could kind of tell when I taste something, but I have been duped,
Yeah.
because they're getting really clever with the additives and not really being able to detect them.
Those bastards.
We have a couple bottles that actually is tequila, but they fight the CRT and it just says agave spirit.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Because they don't want to, it's a tequila technically.
It's called Caballito Cerrero.
They just don't want to conform to like the CRT's regulations.
Did you hear what she said?
What is it?
Oh, it's called Caballito Cerrero.
Caballito
Cerrero.
Cerrero.
No, he can't
What?
roll, he
Come
can't roll
on.
his R's. Say it again.
Caballito
Caballito
Cerrero.
Cerrero.
Oh,
Ah.
she's got some Latina
That
in
kind of
her.
just turned me on.
Okay, show's over. Have a great night, everybody. No, but yeah, so we interviewed the master distiller from Caballito Cerrero, and he told us a story. It's like one of the oldest distilleries in Mexico, and they just kind of gave the finger to the CRT and
They're
were
rebels.
like, sorry, we don't want to be part of what you're doing. And we have enough of they have a cult following.
Yeah.
Right.
Their tequila. They sell out of it every year. And,
The middle finger.
mm-hmm.
So now are you guys, I'm curious, now that you're going down this rabbit hole, do you feel like you guys want to continue to be informers of tequila? Or are you like, we're from California, maybe we go back and we grow some agave?
I'm not going to lie. When I was in California, I was thinking that like, wow, this would be amazing, to do this. It's just because it's right there, like right in our backyard, But I don't know. I just don't see us going back to California.
What does the climate have to be? Because it couldn't happen here. No way, right?
No.
You couldn't grow. It has to be dry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
It's
Year
a desert.
round.
It's a desert.
Yeah,
plant.
it's
gotta be a
desert
it's a
plant.
desert
Some rain,
plant.
but
Yeah.
it's a desert.
Yeah.
plant.
but
So
you
it's
know
gotta-
what? The
yeah.
interesting thing is like when I was up at Stargazer in Glen Ellen, they were having so much success. I mean, 2 days after I was there, it snowed. And it looked like most of the plants made it. I reached out to the owner and he said it looks like they're all going to be okay. The only ones that didn't make it were the little babies that were like in the nursery area growing that he had moved, that were growing outdoors. So,
But like Arizona, you probably could, right?
So Arizona, Texas, we actually interviewed
Nevada,
some
New
people that are
Mexico.
making
Nevada.
one called Blasphemous. It's from Texas. So yeah, a lot of like drier areas.
Look at that.
But the
Yeah.
problem
That's
is it's
cool.
hard to get started with that because even if you bought land and planted now,
yeah.
like 6 to 20 years before
Right.
you're even doing anything with it.
Yeah, because
So
the
you're
blue
just kind of kicking
Weber,
it.
the
Yeah.
blue Weber agave that they actually used to make tequila, that was the one that wasn't doing as well. like when I went to visit the farm in California, but there were a lot of other species that were just thriving.
That just proves that it needs to be where it's at. And
Right.
whoever needs to grow where it grows native,
Right.
and it's going to do the best
Right.
there.
Yeah.
And that's in Mexico.
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know?
Right. Yeah.
But those other agaves, they're hardier, right? They're not as like robust and clean like Blue Weber. So they're a little more like rustic and
Mhm.
classic, you know?
Yeah.
But people are making mezcal off their backyard agaves.
I don't know. I think there's something so cool about like our world and history, like thinking about tequila and thinking about it being from Mexico and
Mhm.
like the heritage of that and like how that exists with like, other spirits and other drinks and food and like, I don't know, just opening up my mind to this whole thing with tequila and like how this has been happening in Mexico for so long and like that this amazing product is coming out of there and
Yeah.
that it pays like, homage to the
Mhm.
people of Mexico. Like, I don't know, it's just really cool. And that it's like this premium thing,
Mhm.
and I don't know if Mexico gets enough credit for that.
It's
'Cause
like
that's amazing.
one of the oldest distilled spirits,
Mhm.
and a lot of people that are health conscious like it because, it doesn't have a lot of sugar.
Yeah.
It's just like a real clean spirit if you get the right ones that don't have all the other stuff in it. So people that have had bad experiences with tequila, number one, they were probably drinking really crappy tequila,
Or taking shots.
Yeah.
taking
Mhm.
shots. So
Of really
I mean,
crappy
if
Of really
you
crappy tequila.
if you take shots of, Jim Beam all night long, you're going to be sick.
Yeah.
So tequila doesn't make you crazy. It's like the way you consume it that makes you crazy.
There is one
Mm.
advantage though of the celebrity tequilas because there is going to be that people that's their start
Mhm.
and they go for it and they're like, oh, and then they start liking that and then they explore. And when you start exploring, then you learn and you
Mm.
learn like what the differences are. And then some of those people are going to become, connoisseurs
Mhm.
or like what we call purists.
Yeah, you got to start someplace.
So it is kind of like a good thing
Yeah.
in a sense.
Yeah.
But then how they're harvesting so early, that's not a good thing.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, we got 5 minutes left, so let's pour another
Okay.
Wait, we
tequila.
have 5 minutes left.
Yeah.
No, we don't.
And I want you to just
On the
tell
30.
people everything that they need to know about tequila.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
What are we
In
trying?
5 minutes.
5
Here,
minutes.
I'll let you pour. This is the Ana Maria. This is the one that's infused with the wine. So let's see, tequila. Let's just go.
I'll just taste some of TJ's.
Let's just go.
No, it's okay.
We'll just do a little tequila 101. Okay, so tequila.
Do you
We
guys have
already talked
questions?
about. Oh yeah, do you have
No, we
questions?
can-
I've been asking
do
my
it- we
questions.
can do
I've been
another
asking
one.
my questions.
So tequila can only be made in Mexico if the bottle says tequila on it.
Right.
Okay. You have different categories of tequila. You have blanco, reposado, añejo, and extra añejo, joven. So we went over those. The blanco is the one that usually isn't aged. There's also a mixto. Mixto is like, think of Jose Cuervo, okay, or your bottom shelf tequilas. Those are tequilas that only have to be 51% agave, and the other 49% is sugar alcohols, sweeteners, flavorings. Those are the ones you use to mix drinks if you want to. The problem is when you make a margarita with those, like when you go into a bar and they're like, we have $3 margaritas, it's usually a mixto tequila and like really crappy mix
Right.
with a lot of sugar. So you're going to have a really bad headache and not feel good, the next day. So those are the 5 varietals. Let's see what else. Blanco, unaged. Reposado, aged anywhere from 2 months to just under a year. Reposado means rested. Añejo means aged. Those are anywhere from 1 to 3 years rested in a barrel. And then anything over 3 is extra añejo. I think the oldest we have is, what's the Resol?
6 years, 10 years. I have a 10-year.
Oh yeah, 10
10
years.
year.
Yeah, that's one of our.
What's a
the
oldest
good
one.
tequila for someone that's wanting to get into tequila and try it out
And not spend too much.
and not spend too much? What's a good starting
Tapatio.
tequila?
Tapatio. That's my opinion.
Tapatio.
Yeah, just like the hot sauce.
Oh.
Yeah,
You can find the
Tapatíos.
bottles and you're in this liquor store and you see that, get it. To me,
Does that not
is-
have any additives?
There's no
No.
additives in it.
Is that a
It's
Blanco?
affordable. They have
They
make
have-
all.
They have them all.
They
They have
have
them all.
Blanco,
Which one do you
Reposado,
Which one do you
Añejo.
recommend?
Extra Añejo Excelencia.
I always tell people, okay, so here's the thing.
That's my thing.
The aged ones, the añejo and the extra añejo, are always going to be, they're not going to have as much a bite. And they're going to be influenced by the barrel. So sometimes I tell people to go backwards and like start there and then go back into the blancos. Personally, I like to taste the blanco first because they're usually not aged in a barrel. Tequila is either it's cooked in an oven, a stone brick oven is the traditional way. It cooks for like 3 days and then they let it cool for like another 2 days. And then they take those big agave piñas, they crush them, ferment the juice, distill it, and then it goes in the bottle. If it's a reposado, it goes in a barrel for, a few months, or añejo or extra añejo. So I always like to start with the blanco because to me that's the purest representation of the spirit.
Is that what this one is?
In my head, I feel like that's how you would. I'm
So
thinking
these
wine world. You'd start with the lighter and go to the darker.
This one's got like some wine in it.
So
This
Yeah,
one
you
is
can
so
tell.
good.
Yeah, this one.
Maybe that's why I like it the most.
This one actually has wine in it.
They just pour some wine.
Yeah,
I seriously love this one.
Yeah.
it's
a lot.
It's Cabernet Sauvignon blended into a blanco.
So can you find this in
Tequila.
liquor stores?
Yeah, you could find
Really?
it. I think what's the big
Total Wine.
Total Wine? I think
Total
has
Wine
it.
has
Total
it.
I
Wine
think
might
they
have
have
it.
it. It's called Ana Maria.
Ana
Mhm.
Maria.
And if you the Código too, they'll have that for sure.
Mhm.
They'll have some other
Mhm.
rosas.
So I don't know if you could tell, but the Código and the Ana Maria. So the Código was like a little bit more mild. You got like the wine.
Mhm.
You tasted the wine, and it's cold filtered. So they pull a lot of like the extra little things out of there. The Juan de Leon was a little more vegetal. You tasted more of the agave, but
Yes.
the color looks
In the
like a little
beginning,
more pink.
But the finish on that was
Yeah.
totally wine.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's
Yes,
why I
yes.
like that. It's got a transition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're tasting all that agave. It tastes like a blanco, and then the
Yeah.
finish is just the smooth, like wine
Yeah.
flavor.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah.
So good.
And then the Ana Maria has, to me, the most wine
Yeah,
influence
it's just
in there because it's actually wine blended in with the Blanco tequila.
No, they're all so
Wow.
delicious.
Mhm.
So smooth. Just
So smooth.
Yes.
So fun. And I can't really honestly drink like spirits straight, and I've been able to have all of these and be like, okay, I'm good. I can sip on this, and I'm not thinking I need a chaser or anything like that. Like you don't need it. Like what you're saying, you can sip this and
Right.
enjoy it. You don't need ice. Like there's no ice
No.
in my glass. I'm just
No.
sipping this as it is, which is kind of amazing.
mhm.
I always tell people, drink it how you like it. I always say drink what you like, but know what's in your glass. Like know what you're drinking. But when you add ice to it, number one, it dilutes it a little bit.
Yep.
But it also makes it like a little brighter and brings out more of like the fruit, the agave, and like a little bit of sweetness in it. So it's
Yeah.
kind of fun to experiment. I
Well,
like
yeah.
it neat, but
And lime, I love
Interesting.
lime and tequila.
some people do, some people don't.
Don't.
Usually when you're drinking a good tequila, you don't, need the
it.
lime. No, you don't
Yeah,
need it.
we drink a lot of gin and tonics, so a lot of lime in those. You guys have been really fun.
This has been great. Very informative.
Yes, super informative.
And now I gotta go buy some bottles of
Oh god,
tequila.
Let him go break the bank.
And we still have 3 tequilas we didn't try. We didn't try the Penta, but we'll do it off air.
Yes. Is there anything you guys wanted to add before we go?
Where can people find you? Tell people where they can
Tell
find
people
you.
where they can find you.
Where can they find you?
LaTequilaMamaCita.
Well, you're not Tequila Mamacita. I am.
He's
Find her.
identifying as La Tequila Mamacita right now.
Find her there and Techie Ladies, and she does her podcast from the Grow Bar.
Yeah.
Yes.
Check out the Grow Bar. Anderson,
Yeah.
Heidi.
And we'll put all this in the
La Tequila.
information
Mamacita.
area.
This has been fun, guys. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having
We'll
us.
have to do a part 2
Yes.
on the
We'll do a
tequila
part 2.
world
Yes.
and have you guys back. So
Muchas
cheers,
gracias.
y'all.
Cheers.
Salud.
Woo, salud.
Salud.